Hi, everyone. I am Olivia Orozco. I am the secondary ELA/ELD TOSA, and I will be presenting the Google Classroom 101 session with my counterpart.
Hi guys, I am Janelle Canyon. I am the TK5 Elementary Math TOSA here at Beaumont Unified.
Awesome. So, we are going to be reminding you that this is a good time to work together and collaborate, especially on a new platform if you're using Google Classroom for the first time. So, mind and vote, one team, one mission, a shared commitment. And another reminder of the fluidity of our situation, especially with some online distance learning resources that you might be using. Sometimes those things may change, and Google Classroom and Google Meet is one of those. They change on a consistent basis, and we might want to reach out to some people to help with the updates if there are updates.
So for our learning target today, we would like you to be able to know how to set up your Google Classroom and implement it as a learning platform. And with our learning target comes our success criteria, which is that by the time you leave here, you should be able to create and share your Google Classroom code. You should be able to organize your topics and create assignments, and also to be able to add a Google Meet to share with your students either via Classroom or via a calendar invite.
So I'm going to show you how to start your Google Classroom. A reminder is if you're an elementary teacher, since you have one class, you are going to create one code. And for secondary teachers, if you have multiple periods, then you will be creating one code for each period. So you will have multiple classes, multiple codes. So this is how Google Classroom looks when you go in. You just have to type in Google Classroom or Classroom, or you can toggle on your waffle. If you see the little waffle here, that will take you to the different apps that you have in your G Suite account. And you just find your Google Classroom one, and it'll take you to this. This is like what you see when you get there. Now, this is just a menu of the different things that you see on Google Classroom. If you have classrooms already created, you can see them here. And then you have this plus sign. That's where you are going to use to join your class. Join a class means that you have a person that is asking you to join their class. It could be a grade level, department, whatever, or here's a create a class. So when you create a class, you're required to name your class. It's a good idea to put your name or period number. You can also put that down here in this information with subject. So that is how you create a class. And like I said, you do that with each class that you have or each period that you have. Okay, that's it for that section. That's pretty simple. So, how to add students is the next section. And in our presentation, I'm sorry that I'm like toggling back and forth here. So when you have already created a class, I'm just going to join my own class here. So when you create your own class, you have this banner that comes on, and you see that you have your title or your subject, you might have your period, room number, whatever you want to add, and then here's your class code. So for students to be added to your Google Classroom, they need to go in and join class, like I showed you previously on the other part, and then add this code. Now, this is something if you were doing face to face, then you would do the full screen like that, and kids could log in. But for now, just you could even copy and paste this onto an email, send it out to parents. Janelle's going to talk about how we have some tips for parents to get the little ones if you have younger elementary students in there. Okay, and so the other thing that we see here, you can select a theme, you can upload a photo. If you don't want this banner, you can change that banner anytime you want. Okay, the next part of I'm kind of going fast on this, but you guys can press pause anytime. Okay, so what can you see on Google Classroom? So there's multiple things that you can see. There's a stream classwork, people, grades, and settings. So stream is what you see here. So on a stream, you might want to make an announcement, something that you want to share with your class. Classwork, this is the meat of your Google Classroom. So this is where you are going, and I'm going to talk about a section with create in a little bit, but you can create your assignments here and topics just like this. For people, these are if you want to do a co-teacher, or if you want to invite another an admin or anyone on the G Suite, you could invite. You just click on the little add button and share with them. You can also add students. I forgot to mention this. You can also add students by adding that right there. So you could literally invite them by typing in their email. This is mostly for older students. I don't know if it works for younger students.
I will add into that. It will work for younger students. So our elementary friends, if you're having difficulty for any reason, language issues has been one that's come up, communicating with your parents, you can add the kids directly by adding in their email and then notifying parents that, hey, I know you've had some issues logging in, but now they're in Google Classroom and you can work through that. That's just another workaround.
Yeah. And once you have all the kids in here, if you want to invite their guardians, if you want their parents to get summaries or notifications, you can click on there and invite them like that. And I believe that could be an outside email also. Mm-hmm. And this is where, you want to email students directly. But like I said, only the high school students have email access. Okay, so grades. Grades is really important. If you are working with a grade book on here, and the settings is where you can change the grading scale and things like that. So I want to get into this really quick. So these are your class details. You can change your name anytime or update it if you want. You can, if you want, if you don't like your Google Class code, you can reset it or disable it, display it, copy it, whatever you want. Because sometimes those O's and zeros are too similar, and the I's and the L's, it's sometimes not really clear. So here, this is an important thing to notice here, the stream. So on the stream, which is the first tab on the top, students can post and comment if you want them to. Students can only comment. That means that if you post something, they can comment on your post, or if you don't want them to make any comments at all, only teachers can post or comment. That's a security purpose. But if you want students to collaborate, you're going to have to go on the students can only comment, but you need those expectations set up ahead of time. Okay, and then classwork on the stream, all of these details here. We're going to get into this Google Meet later, but this is where you can find a Google Meet link if you want. And then Janelle will talk about the visibility on that. And down below, here's the grading. Like I said, the grading tab will be according to what you have here. And as you can see, I haven't really added any categories or anything in that overall grade, okay? Because I wasn't doing this for grades. I was just, training. Okay, so the next part, let's see. All right, talked about that already. All right, how to create assignments. This is the meat of Google Classroom. So on the classwork tab, you have this little plus sign that says create. Now, there are various things that you can use to create. You can just create a generic assignment, Kami assignment, a quiz assignment. You can even ask a question for students to discuss. Now, if you do the question and you want them to discuss back and forth, you need to enable the comment so students can comment. If you don't enable that, they can't comment or they can't discuss. So that's a good tip for the question. Material is if you want to send them a slideshow or a video or something, that's for material. I'll get into each in a little bit. Reuse post is if you have multiple classrooms and you liked a post that you used in another class, you can reuse that post, just get it from the other class. And the topics here is where I believe you need to start. So if you click on topics, I just want to show you really quick. When I was creating some of these um, trainings, I had a description of like week 1, week 2, when are you going to be inserting these assignments. So let me just show you how it looks before I show you how to get into it. So for week 1, which was at that time April 13th, these are all of the assignments and materials that my students were going to need for that week. So it's kind of like organizing topics by week so that you're not having to, you know, have an organized classroom that has different things at different times. It kind of makes sense to do it weekly, and that's our recommendation.
Olivia, can I
Yes.
interject? I kind of think of topics as being like manila folders, right? How you would have a folder system in your physical file cabinet. That's what the topic is, correct? You can put all of your materials, all of your questions, and it helps you be able to communicate with your students. Okay, guys, if we're looking at our chunk of learning for this week, because in distance learning, that can be especially hard. I think Olivia's suggestion to chunk it by topics as a weekly assignment thing is really brilliant.
Yeah. It makes sense also because sometimes in the if it was face to face, I don't think it would be that much of an issue because you're seeing them every day and you're telling them, let's open up this, you
Mhm.
know, topic that I posted. But for distance learning, it makes more sense to do it weekly. So that's what our recommendation is. But like I said, you guys can organize it however you want. It's up to you and your comfort level. Okay. So all of these are basically the same. I just want to open one item and then kind of show you. So that all of the assignments kind of look similar. You put the title, you put the instructions. Here's where if you want to add something to your assignment, you can pick it up from the Google Drive, you can insert a link, you can find a file that you want to download. And I love that YouTube one. You can add a video by finding it on YouTube here. If you want to create a new document or a new slide and you want to share it with your students and have them have a copy, you can do it that way too. Okay. Of course, these are the different settings. What class is going to need that? Are you going to give it to all students or are you going to just give it to a few students? This is a good idea to use when you're grouping students or differentiating, giving them different assignments. Here's for the due date. Here is really important. I kind of missed this a couple of times, but you can always go back and fix it. But make sure that you put it underneath the correct topic that you want to organize it because it just makes it nice when you're organizing, just like a manila folder. Okay. And the rubric here and the plagiarism, this is a new thing that came out recently in the past half of the year, I think 6 months ago. And I haven't really played with it. If you want to play with it, that's perfectly fine. From what I heard, that check plagiarism checks the anything that might be out on the web, but it doesn't check plagiarism between students. Okay, so for secondary, that was a big deal. You might want to use a different kind of checking for plagiarism if you're kind of thinking about that. Okay, and I think that's all I was going to talk about here for the creating assignments. I did want to point out this to you guys here. The class drive folder is where you can actually find all of the materials, all of the work that students have been submitting. Everything is in this one folder. And I love that because it's already there. It's easy to find. It's yeah, it's all here. It's very simple organizational tool for you. Okay. Especially those like me that I don't organize my drive very well. But, you know, that's an issue I'm still working on. Okay. So,
There's actually two other ways to create assignments in Google Classroom for specifically our elementary friends. TK, K, and 1, you will be using Seesaw. And now Seesaw is a learning tool that is fabulous. And it's nice because you can cross post assignments. So you can create an assignment in Seesaw and share it with Classroom. And the same goes for Flipgrid, which 2nd through 5th grade will be using as their other learning platform. So it's nice to know that you have that flexibility to post something on Classroom that then takes the students to Flipgrid, or you can do vice versa. So these are tools that can be used kind of interchangeably depending upon what fits your needs. But because the caveat is because we have 2 different kinds of formats, please make sure your communication with parents is super, super clear, and be thinking about how are you going to share this information. As Olivia was showing you, creating topics by week is a great way to do that. And if you push those out, say on the Sunday ahead of time, it can give parents who are working parents the ability to go through and look at those things and have an idea about what's coming up for their student this week. So that is a lot of information about creating assignments. The other thing that we use Google Classroom for in Beaumont is to meet with students. So Meet is the virtual learning, the synchronous or live meetings that you'll be having with students, according to whatever our MOU determines that should be. So Meet is equivalent to Zoom, those of you who have used it. And just like Olivia was saying, there's constantly being updates. So look for emails from the district that will be telling you about some of the updates. This is the information we currently have. So the Google Meet link is actually on that Google Classroom banner, and it's fabulous. It's right under the class code. It's called the Meet link. Students will be able to view this link, click on the link, and join you in your classroom at any time. Now, the caveat being that they can actually join you at any time, regardless as to whether or not you are in the classroom. That's one of the things that Google is going to be updating, but at this point, students are able to join that class at any time. One workaround is to go into your settings and change that Meet link from visible or viewable by students to not. And you can see on this slide, there's the little eyeball that's crossed out. That means you see the link, but students don't. So by removing that link, they can't go automatically to Classroom and click on it and join your classroom. That's really super effective for most elementary. We know secondary kids sometimes try to find ways around that and can copy paste that Meet link into a new window and then be able to join anytime they want, regardless of if you make it viewable or not. So something to think about with that is monitoring via GoGuardian and turning that off when you don't want them to be able to be there. So be thinking about that. Might be something if you have multiple periods. Each period will have a different Meet link, and maybe you just enable it from your time block of 8 to 9 when that period would be running. So currently, we have some alternative ways to be blocking students from being in virtual classrooms when we don't want them to be. But as Olivia mentioned, things are constantly fluid, things are constantly updating. And if any of that does change, be on the lookout for emails from Beaumont. Olivia, was there anything I forgot about that?
No,
Okay.
that was perfect. Great.
So we have some tips for all teachers, regardless of level or assignment. So the first is back to that communication. Communicating with students can be difficult when you're in the classroom, and it's extremely difficult when you're not in the classroom with them. So please be really aware of how often you're communicating with parents and students, and err on the side of over communication. And I don't mean sending them a million emails via Parent Square. I mean thinking about multiple formats. So think about, how can I screencast these directions and make them accessible to parents? Maybe I have a screencast that I send out on the weekend and say, hey parents, this is what we'll be doing next week. Please have these things ready for your students. Hey students, these are the things we're going to need to be doing. You can post those screencasts in multiple places. Classroom, you can send it via Parent Square. If you're an secondary student and their students have access to their email, you can send it directly to the students. There's all kinds of different ways to communicate. So please be conscientious about your choices. Making sure that you're sharing those videos in multiple formats, as I just mentioned, and then also organizing your content by weeks, how Olivia was suggesting, really helps students be able to pace themselves, because at this point, self-regulation is something that we're still working on our students with, because this is a new experience for them as well. So all of those are tips to keep in mind. We hope now that you are understanding how to set up your Google Classroom and implement it as a learning platform, and that you will now be able to create and share your classroom, to share and organize topics and create assignments, and then also to create and share Google Meet links.
Thank you guys so much. And again, remember, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, not just me and Janelle, but we have like a few other TOSAs or even your site tech coaches. They can help you out too. I did include a link here for how to get started with Google Classroom with updates, like kind of like what we went over, but a little bit maybe a different way if you guys want to take a look at that. And Janelle included the link to our Beaumont USD online learning platform website that we put together for everyone with our previous trainings and webinars that we had done in the spring. So, and we have a ton of resources there and tips and tutorials and all kinds of good stuff. So take a look at that if you guys would like to do that. You want to say bye, Janelle?
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Okay, bye.